the next thing that libs are wetting their pants about, because you didn't see the success of the tariffs, or at least this particular success of the tariffs on any of the big mainstream media. Instead, you saw panic about the Qatar airplane. President Trump is on a 4-day trip throughout the Middle East, starting in Qatar, in which they promised to give the country a big, beautiful plane. Let's bring our panel back in. Chris Hand and Morgan McMichael are here to talk about this. So, guys, just to set this up, the Qataris are saying, hey, we're gonna give you this $500 million plane. Now, it's been widely reported that President Trump is not happy with Boeing and the delays that the new Air Force One has been taking. So the Qataris are saying, hey, we're gonna give you this plane. Now, the lib media are saying, are they trying to buy favors with President Trump? Well, first of all, the plane's not going to him. It's going to be transferred to the ownership of the DoD, the Department of Defense. We'll have the plane, and then when Trump leaves office, it'll be donated to the Trump Presidential Library, possibly for use, but also could be in his library as a display, just like Reagan's is. I believe the airplane that Kennedy uses is in Kennedy's library. Unconventional, yes, but what is there that Trump does that is conventional? Chris, your just initial thoughts, reactions to this. Is this worth the libs wetting their pants over? Or do you think maybe this is a kick in the pants to Boeing to, hey, maybe get your system moving a little bit faster so the president doesn't have to get planes from somewhere else?
Well, we all know that there's an overwhelming amount of Qatari influence in our government that we need to get a rein on. Everybody talks about that on the internet. It's a huge topic of conversation. No, I mean, my initial thought is, okay, cool. He's doing what you said. Give a kick in the pants to Boeing and get things sped up. I mean, the original timeline on this was being discussed when Obama was in office. So it was like, what, 2015? And then he signed the new deal to get it done during his first term. And now they're saying that the Air Force One wouldn't be ready until 2035. So it is behind schedule and over budget. That is not two things that Trump likes to deal with at all. So I think that by him publicizing this offer from the Qatari government, he's making a case to Boeing, get your bleep together. Now, that being said, the plane coming from Qatar, if it was to happen, I'm not a huge fan of that. We all know the Qatari government from famous things like, I don't know, shielding the leaders of Hamas. So what can we expect from a plane coming from Qatar? Well, I would imagine that you could have listening devices and cameras and all the nooks and crannies. And sure, they would go through a security procedure, but I still just don't like the idea of it. I think that plane should be made in America by Americans and for the president here, not from some other place.
Yeah, and I think everybody watching is probably hoping that that's the case. Hey, if you guys want to give us a $500 million airplane, fine. But maybe the whole idea is to kick Boeing in the pants, say, hey, maybe stop focusing so much on the DEI and focus on the plane building. Also, this is actually the first government contract that has been delayed and over budget. That's never happened before in the history of this country, and hopefully will never happen again. Morgan, I don't know, your thoughts. Is this as big of a deal as the lib media is making it to be? Obviously, I think President Trump is going to be smart about his approach to this. Do you agree?
You know, the Trump administration has been very transparent thus far throughout the last now over 100 days of his administration. So I don't see why they wouldn't be transparent about this. And of course, they're going to do the best interest of the American people. So, right, just as you said, Chris, when the plane eventually, if it does get to America, will be under the DoD, and the Air Force will then probably have to strip this entire plane for security purposes to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. And you know what? President Trump needs a plane to get from where he needs to go across not just the country, but the world. So if he doesn't have an Air Force One available for the time being, then, you know, we might as well take this more than almost $500 million plane from Qatar. Do I like that it's coming from Qatar? Not really. And honestly, I think it's a little ridiculous that the libs think this has something to do with bribery, or that, you know, the Qataris really want something out of President Trump and this is putting Americans at harm. Like, it's an airplane. How much can that really do, to be honest?
Yeah, and again, I think the biggest thing is, you know, is this actually going to make a big difference in Qatari-U.S. relations? Like, I don't know. And I think that's the biggest thing I would like to say to libs. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe just sit around and wait before we start wetting our pants over this. Is it unconventional? Absolutely. But again, what hasn't been in the Trump administration? And a lot of it has turned out to the Americans' benefit.